Hey everyone, how's it going? This run really was, in many ways, one of the worst I've ever done. And the reason for this is going to become apparent shortly, but I promise you, this isn't clickbait or anything. I've done a lot of these. This one's interesting. Now, this is my third video on the Pokemon Shedinja, and Shedinja is a unique Pokemon. I mean, sure, it has a move pool like other Pokemon, and it has stats mostly like other Pokemon, but then you get to the issue of its HP. Shedinja doesn't have one base HP, it has 1 HP. That is it. There is no way legitimately to increase that to 2, to 3, it is stuck at 1. To make up for this, Shedinja has what otherwise would be one of the most overpowered abilities in Pokemon history, Wonder Guard. For Wonder Guard, it's basically all or nothing. It's either a super effective hit, or it does nothing. Now, a couple years ago, I did a video on why a damageless run in Black and White was impossible. That's because the AI is specifically programmed to always go for Tackle on turn 1, and Tackle never misses. So it might surprise you that if somehow by, I don't know, magic or having a Shedinja, regardless, Sharon's dialogue slightly changes, which is super interesting because under normal circumstances, no player would ever be able to actually see this dialogue. So, cool. Shedinja's awesome, right? Yeah, let's fast forward just a little bit ahead. This is youngster Jimmy. He has a level 7 Patrat. Do you want to know what move a level 7 Patrat knows? Yes, it knows Leer, but more importantly, it knows Bite. And since we're not knocking this out in one hit, that's it, we lose. It is just a 1 in 3 chance it goes for Bite, but because it takes 4 turns to knock it out, the chance that you don't get a Bite is very slim. So just level up in the grass, right? Now, this is possible, and this is what I had to do, but there's a couple things you need to know about leveling up in the grass. Number 1, Shedinja is in what's called the Erratic Experience Group. This group takes the least amount of experience points to get to level 100, but in the early levels, if we compare it to something like the starters, it takes quadruple the amount of experience points to get from level 5 to 6, well, nearly that, and almost double most other experience groups. In fact, Shedinja doesn't even overtake the so-called slow experience group until level 28. In other words, leveling this thing up is a giant pain. But wait, it gets even better, because starting in Gen 5, then not in Gen 6, but then from Gen 7 onward, the amount of experience points you get depends on the level difference between you and your opponent. To give a practical example, this level 4 Patrat gave me 31 experience points now, but at level 8, it only gives 27, which doesn't seem that big a deal until you realize that is a 21% decrease in the amount of experience points I get. This is why it took me 35 minutes of in-game time to actually get past youngster Jimmy, the first trainer in the entire game. Well, I guess technically he's the fourth because you have your 2 rivals, then N, but the first one that actually has a move that can damage me. And while the next 2 battles, including Bianca on the route, aren't a problem, look at this. Sharon has Tepig. Now, if I weren't such a stickler for my own rules, I guess what I could have done is had Shedinja replace Tepig, and so I would have been facing Snivy and Oshawott, which would have been a little easier, but those of you who watch me know I'll always substitute the Pokemon closest in type to mine, so in this case Snivy, since they're both weak to fire, and that's not going to do really well here in this mandatory battle that you need to win in order to access the gym. This is probably the closest situation to the frustration I feel sometimes battling Brock, since there are basically no trainers, and youngster Joey, that's right, that's his name, he also has Patrat with Bite. And because you can't access Route 3, nor can you access grass in the Dream Yard, the only way to really gain experience points is to stick to the super low leveled Pokemon of Route 2. And by the way, the level 4 Pokemon are now down to giving me 22 experience points. Don't get me wrong, I understand why this is a thing, and in a lot of cases it actually makes the game easier, especially in modern Pokemon with experience share always being on. Your lower level Pokemon are able to catch up far quicker. But in cases like this, where I need to level up my Pokemon more than you otherwise should, it just takes forever, because not only do I need more and more experience points to level up, but I'm getting less and less from each individual battle. Finally, at level 13, I'm able to defeat Sharon because by this point, Scratch, if it crits, is a 2-shot, and Purloin wouldn't be a problem. So you might think if I decided to make things easier on myself and not swap for Snivy, Sharon would have been a lot easier and we could have avoided all this. You'd be wrong, however, because irrespective of who you took as your starter and who the gym leader is, in this case it's going to be Chili, they always lead with a level 12 Lillipup that has one attacking move. Would you like to guess what that attacking move is? It's not Work Up, but it is Bite. It's like the game knew that someone would try to hack in a Shedinja, so they made sure to make every single major battle Shedinja proof, which is typically not the case in the early game. But yeah, that means back to the Route 2 grass, fighting level 4 Pokemon, although they can be higher level. By the way, the level 4s now give 15 experience points. Yay. And so at 146 of in-game time, we battled Chili. And I have an idea. Let's use Fury Swipes. It's an 18 base power move, but it can hit 5 times. Unfortunately, as you can see, it would need to hit 6 times, so 5 with a crit in there somewhere to knock out Lillipup. So that's not very good, but if it goes for Work Up and I get 2-3 hits or more, we can make it to the next Pokemon, Pansear. Now, this is where not substituting Shedinja for Snivy makes a difference, because it wouldn't be Pansear, it would be either Panpour or Pansage, neither of which could actually hit Shedinja. But of course, I am who I am, and we're gonna have to level up a little bit more so that our Fury Swipes do just a little bit more damage and we don't have to rely on as much luck. Thankfully, as it turned out, we just had to level up one more time. Unfortunately, that took another 34 in-game minutes because of what we've talked about earlier. But at level 15, we actually do a lot more damage. Another important thing is that Lillipups actually give attack EVs. So our Shedinja is actually gaining way more attack than you otherwise would expect. Very rarely in the early game is there a Pokemon that gives attack EVs. Well, that's not true. There are some, but Lillipup is definitely pretty prevalent. And then against Pansear, we need Work Up. Pansear unfortunately does outspeed us, but if we hit with a 3 and a 4, we are to win, and we get the 3, and then another 3, but with a crit. And you can see I'm genuinely pretty happy about beating the straight-on gym, and we can finally make a little bit of progress. I mean, 2 hours for the first gym is absurd in later Pokemon games. But it's all good, we're out of the woods, we beat the gym leader. Surely things will be smooth sailing for the next 5 minutes, because as soon as we get to Route 3, we have to battle Sharon again. Remember how that went last time? Well, now his Tepig is at level 14. And, well, I mean, Fury Swipes can miss. That's an issue. But what happens if the Fury Swipes hits? Surely they'll do enough damage that I don't need to go back to Route 2 again. Oh, well, that's upsetting. Now, there are some trainers on Route 3 that we can battle to gain a little bit more experience points. Unfortunately, it's not enough to beat Sharon, so it's back to the grass for me. But thankfully, since we did beat the straight-on gym, we actually have access to new grass, the grass here in the Dream Yard. And this grass has level 8 Patrat and other higher level Pokemon. And obviously, this is very important because of the way the experience point system works. So now we're at level 18. Are we enough to defeat a Tepig? Well, Fury Swipes, even if we got a 5 with the Oranberry, well, we just did get a 5. Nope, it's not enough. And it's at this point I get fed up and decide rather than battle high-level Pokemon, I'm going to go back to Route 1 because there is a 50-50 chance of getting Lillipup. And if I just keep battling Lillipup, I can knock out Patrat if I want. But if I knock out the Lillipup, I'm going to be getting 1 attack EV every single time. And if I max out my attack EVs, Shedinja actually has 90 base attack, so it will make a pretty significant difference going forward. After a while doing that, I went back to the Dreamyard grass and something happened that changed the run completely. I was under the mistaken impression you couldn't get Audino encounters until Route 3, but it's really just not until you beat the first gym. This was a mistake because look how much experience points I get from a level 9 Audino. I mean, it growls a lot and it takes a while. 350. I might take advantage of that later, but we've hit level 19. Time to battle Sharon again. We're going to need some luck with Fury Swipes, but with that attack boost, it's doing clearly more. I think 5 hits should be enough. Well, spoiler alert, it wasn't. And so after 4 hours and 30 minutes of in-game time, and in real time, it was over 2 hours. I am playing at increased speed, and because I do this battle so often and that doesn't count towards in-game time, it was the worst. It finally took a 5-hitter to knock it out, and then Purloin, it took 2 hits because I got a crit. I'm at level 20. It took me 4 hours just to get to Route 3. Surely now things are going to settle down for... you know that's not going to happen. Now we have to get into a multi-battle with these 2 Plasma Grunts with 2 Patrat. And you know what Patrat know? That's right, they know Bite. Now, there is actually a trick to this that I didn't realize till a little bit later. Which one attacks me is actually very consistent. It's always the one on the right for some reason. By the way, this is the second of 2 battles you have to get into, and it took me 7 minutes to finally actually beat all the Patrats. Yay! Surely now, finally, things are going to be fine. It's the normal gym. Normal types, very bad against Ghost. Yeah, not these ones. Herdier has Intimidate. So right off the bat, I have less attack than I should, and it knows Bite. I mean, I have Sand Attack, that's pretty cool, but I do next to nothing because, you know, Intimidate. And I think it's time that you and I started getting very well acquainted with a certain Pokemon. Of course, that Pokemon is Audino. Now, Audino is actually interesting, and in some ways is kind of better to fight than most other Pokemon. Audino can't be found regularly in the grass, it can only be found with rustling grass. Now, how do you make the grass rustle? Essentially, all you need to do is kind of run back and forth near some grass, and eventually something will rustle. Now, you can still get a regular encounter, and that will de-rustle or despawn the Audino, whatever you want to say. But this area right here, there's not really much depth in the grass, so getting to the Audino is pretty safe. And there's even a person just above us who will restore our power points. Now, I am saving a whole bunch because this kid right here has a Roggenrola, and I haven't defeated him yet because, you know, that's really bad. The one downside about leveling up against Audino is that the EVs they give HP are completely useless. In fact, Shedinja is the easiest Pokemon to EV train in the world. You only need speed and attack. But at this point, I really wasn't too worried about my speed EVs. I just wanted to level up so I could actually battle Lenora, and we're gonna have to level up a ton based on the battles we had. How long do we have to level up for? Well, 6 hours, 37 minutes of in-game time, and if you wonder what level that's gonna put us at, it's level 31, and there's a reason for this. At level 31, Shedinja gets Confuse Ray. And this is way better than Sand Attack, because not only does it cancel Herdier's attack 50% of the time, it does damage to itself, which stacks with the Fury Swipes, and it can hit multiple times. So this is RNG, but I can see a pathway to victory, and also we're doing way more damage. It did take like 4 battles to actually get past Herdier for the first time, but it always feels good when you do that, even when you don't inevitably win the battle. Just, it's progress, right? It's so frustrating to be stuck in one spot for such a long time. It's been happening so much. But a 4-hitter plus a crit knocked out the Herdier with a confusion. And then Watchog, we have the exact same problem. Thankfully, it doesn't have Intimidate. But because of Intimidate at level 31, we would need Watchog to hit itself in confusion twice. I don't know the exact odds of winning at this level, but it seems to be around 5%, which isn't great, but it's better than 0%, which is basically what it was before. Well, it took 20 minutes of battles, so maybe it would have been a little bit more efficient to just level up a little bit more, but I can be very, very stubborn, and I was so sick of those Audino. I mean, we've probably wiped out every last Audino on Route 3. And in this battle, we actually get a miss with Fury Swipes, which is really bad, but a double hit in Confusion. And then against Watchog, we get Confuse Ray. Obviously, it hits itself in Confusion because if it doesn't, it's always going to attack me. Yay, decent AI. And then with Fury Swipes, we need a crit really badly. We don't get it, but we do get a 5-turner. And then I start celebrating, thinking, oh my god, I did it. But of course, it survives on like a sliver of HP. and now she's going to heal with a super potion, meaning it's over, right? There's nothing we can do, but we get a second 5-hitter, and Scratch does just enough, although maybe the crit mattered. That was truly awful. And in case you're asking about TMs or any other move I could use, nothing. We actually haven't talked about this yet, so this is as good a time as any to mention this. Shedinja has a horrific level up set that takes forever to get even slightly useful moves. And Shedinja's TM moves are okay, but all those TMs are available very late in the game. Okay, that's not completely true. It's the mid-game, but like, considering it's taken me so long just to get past the second gym, I mean, it's insane. This has been one of the longest runs I've ever done, and we've only gotten past 2 gyms. Now, I'd love to tell you it was smooth sailing from here to Berg, but it wasn't. There were plenty of trainers that required multiple resets, which is annoying, but I don't want to repeat myself too much. So let's fast forward to Berg, the bug-type trainer. Certainly this trainer, of all trainers, wouldn't require any sort of RNG. I mean, it's bug-type. What are they possibly going to do? And there's no Intimidate this time, nothing to worry about. We can just Fury Swipes and knock out Whirlipede. Oh yeah, Dwebble, a Rock-type Pokemon. And fun fact, Dwebble's Rock-type move is Smackdown. Doesn't have a chance of missing. Additional fun fact of Dwebble, a Rock-type Pokemon, resists Normal-type attacks. Oh yeah, good time to mention, remember that Whirlipede we knocked out really easily? Yeah, Nose Pursuit. This game, literally, I don't know who at Game Freak was like, what if someone hacks in a Shedinja? Well, I mean, they can't use it. It's not even a Gen 5 Pokemon. But what if they do? We should make sure every single trainer has a Dark-type or Rock-type move. That will show them. And yes, it is definitely showing me. Long and the short of it, we're going to have to level up more, but here's something that's really fun, and by fun I mean terrible. The best place to level up is where we were before, on the outside of Pinwheel Forest, fighting level 12 to 15 Audino, who are going to give me less experience points. But to get to Pinwheel Forest, we have to cross Sky Arrow Bridge, which is nothing. Like, there's nothing to do. And I'm sure in 2011 this looked really damn cool, but like in 2025, it doesn't. And I just want to get back to the forest. And that's why I'm showing you my entire journey. I'm actually saving. By the way, 7 hours, 38 in-game minutes. Hooray. I'm actually saving. There's actually some trainers here I can battle, so I'm going to do that first, but I don't want to have to go back. It's so tedious. I've spent a literal hour, an hour, grinding experience points. We are almost 10 hours of in-game time in. Can we beat the bug-type guy? With a level 21 Whirlipede, I'm level 38 now. 38. You'll notice I have a Ghost-type move, which is cool, but Fury Swipes hitting 5 times is still my most powerful move, meaning we're still reliant on RNG. The method I felt was easiest to get past Whirlipede involved Confuse Ray, and it sucks that we have to use it, but I don't see a better choice. It hits itself in confusion, that does just a little bit of damage, and I wanted to see how much Shadow Sneak would do, and it almost does enough. But even after Whirlipede hits itself in confusion, it actually still hangs in there, and Berg has Hyper Potions. Now with the max roll, Shadow Sneak would have knocked out Whirlipede there, so as Berg heals, we know that Shadow Sneak is going to knock out Whirlipede, but now here comes Dwebble. Unless Shadow Sneak one-shots, which I don't think it's going to, I go for Confuse Ray. Thankfully this Dwebble doesn't have Sturdy. Of course, the Dwebble goes for Smackdown and knocks me out, so more RNG. Yay. Now, this battle would be over if Shadow Sneak would one-shot Dwebble, but unfortunately, it's just not strong enough, even though I'm 17 levels higher. If we had Shadow Claw or something, sure, but not Shadow Sneak with its only 40 base power. I battled Berg a bunch more, and eventually I had to level up. We're already at almost 11 hours of in-game time, but we are at a higher level now, level 40. And this does make a difference, although it takes such a long time to get there. Fury Swipes now can knock out Whirlipede, so no confusing. I do still have to use Confuse around Dwebble, but if it hits itself once at level 40... Oh no, I meant to use Shadow Sneak, no! Okay, well, Shadow Sneak would have knocked it out, but so will hitting itself twice in confusion, and Leaveney is one of the first Pokemon we're actually gonna face in a gym battle that cannot hit me. This is supposed to happen all over the place, and yet it just seems like every single Pokemon was given a completely useless move like Pursuit just to make sure Shedinja couldn't do what it does against Leavanny. And so after 2 real-life hours of trying and failing to beat Berg, we finally have our 3rd gym badge. And if you're wondering, when finally are things going to change and things aren't going to take so long? Well, your prayers are about to be answered. We first have to have a quick battle with Bianca, but since Shedinja is more than double the level of most of her Pokemon, the battle goes just about as easily as you'd expect, and thankfully most of her Pokemon actually don't have a way to hit Shedinja. Now that we've beaten her, it's time to proceed to Route 4, where our other rival, Sharon, he's there waiting for us. So let's go ahead and battle Sharon, and let's see why our luck is about to take a turn. Well, we're level 40, and it's a level 20 Pidove. Fury Swipes should knock it out. Very good. And that's it. Runs over. Did you enjoy the video? Because here is the problem. This battle with Sharon is mandatory. And like most battles in Pokemon, you can't control what route they happen on. Route 4 always has a sandstorm present. Safety goggles aren't a thing, and you don't get Sunny Day until later. There is no way to remove the sandstorm, and thus no way for Shedinja, with its 1 HP that does get damaged by sandstorm, there's no way for it to proceed. This just goes to show you there are still runs that exist that aren't just practically impossible, but theoretically impossible. And you know, it's nice to have videos on the channel where I actually lose, and you can look it up. There's no way to get rid of this sandstorm. I looked up on Cerebi, on Bulbapedia. Oh, what's this guy's Super Sphere saying? Is changing the clock and entering a different battle to get rid of the weather out of the question? How would that even work? I don't think changing the clock gets rid of weather. There's weather on every single day. It's not like on some routes where there's only weather on certain days. Well, I know this isn't gonna work, but you know, sometimes you gotta placate people in chat. So according to them, I just have to change the clock and get into a random encounter. As you're gonna see, the sandstorm is still gonna be present. Although, for whatever reason, there's quite a bit of lag here. I don't know why that is. But yeah, sandstorm's still present, as I expected. So I'm gonna run away and... There's no way they were right. There's no way you were just right there. What? What? Who just... What? Wait, I have to do the rest of this now? Oh, I was done. No, this was supposed to be a run I couldn't do. The whole point was I couldn't do this. I wanted to finally show a theoretically impossible run. It's been years since I've done one. That was the idea. I wanted a run that was theoretically impossible. What? I can't believe this is a thing. It's so funny that when I brainstormed runs that were theoretically impossible, this was right near the top of my list and I just never got around to doing it. And now, because I do these runs live on Twitch, and even though tons of other knowledgeable people had no idea this was a thing, it turns out just by changing the date, which is something I do in all my runs, you can somehow bypass the sandstorm. And oh yeah, as you're seeing, this Sharon fight isn't actually a joke. It takes quite a bit of RNG, and it took me about 5 minutes to win. But the more important story is that this run, which was intended to be a showcase of how just a small innocuous thing like Sandstorm on Route 4 could derail a solo run, well, turns out there was a way around it that I never would have imagined was a thing. Like, why would changing the date have an effect on the sandstorm? It's just so bizarre. Apparently, I'm a Blissey discovered that, so thanks, Blissey. Appreciate that. But yeah, it seems like we're going to be moving on to the rest of the game, but the one positive thing is that most of the really good TMs Shedinja actually learns, ones I never really considered I would ever get because the run was supposed to end here, I'm gonna get really soon. And you can see a couple of these new moves as I battle Elisa. Now, there's one big problem with Elisa. The best move we have is Return, and Emolga can paralyze us. Thankfully, it doesn't happen here, but something else I wasn't expecting, Zebstrika with Flame Charge, because of course it has Flame Charge. Look at that expression. It actually can outspeed me. I figured with all the speed EVs and at such a high level, I would never have to worry about getting outsped. But by doing some calculations, I realized that with just another level or two of growth, we actually will outspeed Zebstrika, but sadly, after all this time, I still need to grind levels to beat a gym. The level I need to outspeed Elisa's Pokemon is level 44, and now just no static would be nice. Unfortunately, I can't use Dig on Emolga because they're flying type, but we don't get static, which would have sucked, and then we use Dig, and then we one-shot. So, easy victory, but still we have a situation where all three Pokemon could hurt Shedinja, and we still have yet to have a gym battle that was a first try victory against a Pokemon that's typically feast or famine, but it's really just been a prolonged famine. That said, I will be honest with you and say that at this point, at least when it comes to random trainers, things really start to speed up. Return is base 102 power, unsurprisingly I do have max friendship, and Dig being base 80, it really does give me some decent coverage and strong attacking moves. And because of that, finally, with Clay, the 5th gym leader, the ground-type gym leader, it's all going to come together. Krokorok is thankfully not an Intimidate Krokorok, and thus Return does one-shot it. Excadrill, we outspeed, and so Dig, by the way, of course it has Rock Slide, one-shots, it's super effective. Then the final Pokemon is Palpitoad, thankfully not a Seismitoad, and Return does enough. I am level 46. All those levels have finally contributed to an easy victory. But before I get too happy, we have this battle with Bianca. Up to this point, it's been Sharon that's been the difficult one, but Herdier's Intimidate is going to make things complicated. Because I'm a physical attacker, and Herdier isn't one-shot by Return anymore, and so I could maybe try to get a crit or hope for RNG, but at this point, if I level up just a little bit more, and you can get some Audino here in the cold storage, I mean, not if you run into grass like that, but you know what I'm saying, I probably could level up enough that we're not going to have to worry about any sort of luck. So I'm going to go level up a little bit more. It sucks I still have to do this, but we're getting to the point where it may not be as big a deal, but we just have to proceed a little bit further. At level 48, we finally get to a point where Return will one-shot the Herdier. I already know there's people who are really pissed off I'm not calling it Herdier and calling it Herdier, but hey, I'm Canadian. You're going to put that I-E-R at the end of a Pokemon? I'm going to pronounce it like Herdier because I think that's hilarious. Oh, also we don't one-shot Duat, but finally a Pokemon that doesn't actually have a move to hit me with. It's nice when those are still a thing. It's been rare, which I guess in some ways makes this the most fair Shedinja run, that every single Pokemon hits Shedinja, so I can't just cheese battles like I've done in my other runs. But although these last two Pokemon are bulky and annoying, without a move like Toxic or Sandstorm or any other way to damage me, it's just a matter of time, and by defeating Bianca, we can actually proceed pretty far into the game. Or at least we would be able to proceed pretty far into the game if it weren't for N. N is the main villain, but really acts more like a rival fight, and he uses Pokemon that are indigenous to whatever route you're on. So in this case, a Bulldor. But Bulldor has Sturdy, so I'm not going to just be able to use Dig and one-shot it. I have to go for Confuse Ray, and that's why it's important to keep Confuse Ray. Pokemon with Sturdy are really, really bad for Shedinja, and Gen 5 is the first generation where Sturdy acts the way it does now. In the other generations, I never had to worry about this. So it's just resetting a lot of Bulldor fights in order to get past it, but that's not the end of the battle. It took many, many fights, even though it should be just a 50-50 chance, which angered me to no end, but when we finally get past Bulldor by using Dig, our next issue is Ferroseed. Now, we're very lucky that Ferroseed doesn't actually have a move to hit us, but what it could do to knock us out... Oh, I might not have enough power points here. is that it has iron barbs. Up to this point, every single move we have used is a contact move. And if a contact move hits an iron barbs Pokemon, well then that Pokemon's gonna take a bunch of damage, which for Shedinja, even a little damage equals fainting. So that's something that is gonna be a concern going forward. If we have to fight Pokemon that have abilities like iron barbs, we're gonna have to rely on different moves. This may be foreshadowing for, oh my god, I'll get to that. For now, there's a bunch more busy work I need to complete, and then I can go and battle Skyla, the flying type gym leader. She leads with Swoobat, but you'll notice now I have Shadow Claw, which is way stronger than Shadow Sneak and knocks it out. Next comes Unpheasant. I still have to use Return, and unfortunately, even at level 55, Return isn't quite strong enough to one-shot Unpheasant. Now, the most obvious solution to this problem is to just use Confuse Ray and hope after it hits itself in confusion, Return will do enough to knock it out. But unfortunately, as you're gonna see, although maybe it was a range, it's not guaranteed to knock it out. And so I figured, alright, just level up, make it consistent. I don't feel like resetting for another 5 hours. As I battle Skyla again, it's important to note that while we had a really hard time leveling up before, now we level up way faster than most Pokemon would. Not only because we get the Lucky Egg, which is a super great item to get. Also look at that, one-shotting the Unpheasant. But the other big thing here is that while in the early levels, being in the erratic group works against us, in the later levels, it works dramatically for us. As I said when I introduced that group, it does require the least amount of experience points to get to level 100. So now, when we do need to level up, it actually takes not much time at all for Shedinja to gain a lot of levels very quickly. At least in an overall relative sense, not just to Shedinja, but other Pokemon. And finally, with the combination of us leveling up very quickly, having our best moves, we're finally at a point where we're just cruising through the game. Because you can't knock out Shedinja if it knocks you out first. And Shedinja will knock you out first. We use Shadow Claw on Vanillish, then Beartic we can swap to X-Scissor, only base 80 power, oh. Well, good news, Beartic actually doesn't have a way to hit Shedinja, but if I hit myself in confusion, I will faint. Thankfully, I hit with Shadow Claw and I level up. And now Cryogonal, very weak defensively, I snap out, perfect. So for the first 7 gyms, we have 2 first try victories. In fact, once we got by Berg, we didn't have a gym leader that took us hours and hours. At least, not yet. But before I can talk about that, there is another annoying Bianca battle. And now that she's leading with an Intimidate Pokemon, things are really, really tough. Because even though we would be able to one-shot her Pokemon normally, with Intimidate, it's just X-Scissor, doesn't do enough, Crunch. I mean, it hits me, so it's gonna knock me out. And I'm not particularly close to knocking out her Stoutland. I know you're thinking just level up, but before I do that, I want to see if I can manage a way with Confuse Ray to make things work. So I go for it. Stoutland has pretty good attack, so okay, that wasn't as good as I was hoping, but maybe 2, I can knock it out. And, well, actually with 2, I can knock it out with X-Scissor. Thankfully, even after full restore, it's a 2 KO. Oh, well, critical hit. That works. But now out comes Simisear, and I go for Shadow Claw because X-Scissor is going to be resisted, and it's only base 70 power, so Simisear does knock me out. But there's still another option I have at my disposal. We could teach Dig for Return, and Dig will knock out a Simisear. And so when I end up winning, we have this weird amalgam of some interesting strategies, but also having to rely on luck. And I hate relying on luck, but when it comes to Shedinja, it just feels like there's not a lot of alternatives. There's no wiggle room. And so I need Stoutland to knock itself twice in confusion. That's a 25% chance of happening, which isn't super high. Thankfully, at this point, we can knock out Stoutland as it heals, go for Dig on Simisear, and nothing else actually has moves to hit Shedinja. If Musharna had Shadow Ball, or Samurott had, I don't know, Aerial Ace I think it can learn, this would be a nightmare, and we either have to rely on crits or level up a ton. So this battle definitely isn't fully Shedinja proof, but don't you worry, don't you worry. We're not just coming up to a battle that's Shedinja proof, we're coming up to a whole darn gym. This is the Opelucid City Gym. a gym I did not expect to challenge in this run, and I really wish I had thought ahead here, because Veteran Hugo has a Druddigan. Druddigan has 2 abilities. One of those abilities is Rough Skin, which knocks out my Shedinja when we use X-Scissor. The other ability is Sheer Force. In white version, for whatever reason, as far as I can tell, the Druddigans in that gym all have Sheer Force. But in black version, for whatever reason, they all have Rough Skin. And while against Ferroseed, I was able to use Struggle Bug, the special bug move we get from Berg, and we had just enough power points. Against Druddigan, it's a little more complicated because as you can see, it actually can damage me. Now, there is a move Shedinja can learn both via level up and via TM that doesn't deal contact damage, but it relies on Shedinja's pitiful special attack. That is how much Shadow Ball does. That is my expression to the pitiful damage. Because how are we going to do enough damage to knock out this Druddigan? Also, I keep forgetting to save, which is why I keep having my HM Pokemon having to fight and faint to the Druddigan. Gotta remember to save. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, oh god, J-Rose, how much do you have to level up here? But the answer is, you don't actually have to. You just have to get beyond absurdly lucky. So 50-50 chance for Confuse Ray to hit in Confusion, and then another 50-50, so we're down to 25%, and now Shadow Ball hits, and now we need it to hit itself in Confusion for a 3rd time. And so while you'd think, okay, 12.5%, that's not so bad, remember that as of turn 2, it can snap out of Confusion. So the true odds are probably a lot worse than that. And this is just the first trainer. There's more of these. Ace Trainer Tom has not 1, but 3 Pokemon. And although we can easily one-shot the Dino, the problem is it's just taking more and more time, and every time it doesn't hit itself in Confusion. By the way, this is not my first battle, this is my last battle, because I've been at this for 5 minutes and I'm sick and tired, so it is in fact time to level up. So I leveled up for over an hour, and if you think that made Tom an easy first try victory, you're wrong. It really doesn't, because as you're gonna see, we still need some significant Confuse Ray luck. Needs to hit itself the first time. Now we're gonna go for Shadow Ball, and it's doing way more damage, but we still need at least 2 hits in Confusion. That means at best, this is a 1 in 4 chance for happening. And after Tom, by the way, there's Ace Trainer Dara, who has just a Dino and a Druddigan. And if you're wondering, well, she must not have taken too long. 13 minutes. 13 minutes. Because getting it to hit itself in Confusion twice is just not very likely. It's so easy that something goes wrong. And the resets, they're just not super quick. Now, I could theoretically have turned off animations, but I'll be honest with you, I think they look pretty cool in Gen 4 and 5, and I also think they really help the viewer see what's going on. So I do like leaving them on for those games. There are moments like these, however, where I wish I turned them off. So I've spent an hour just to get to Drayden. And you might expect that Drayden himself is going to be next level difficult. But the absolute gut punch is, he's not. He's just the same as every other trainer we fought. The Druddigan is just 1 level higher, which makes absolutely no difference. We just need it to hit itself in Confusion twice. If anything, it's actually better that it's a level higher, because this way Drayden doesn't heal, the HP just kind of works out perfectly, and then we can go for X-Scissor against Haxorus, and because we're at level 79, because of all those Ace Trainers, shockingly, in a gym that took me over an hour to defeat, I actually am able to beat Drayden himself on my first try. This run has been an absolute experience, and this was less the Dragon Gym than the Rough Skin Gym. Man, I wish I played white version, although it would have made the final gym a lot less epic. And speaking of epic, we're about to get to the finale of most Pokemon games, the Elite Four. The Elite Four in Gen 5 are a little bit easier for 2 reasons. One, you can pick whatever order you want to challenge them in, and 2, they only have 4 Pokemon as opposed to 5. Most of the Pokemon, however, do have moves that hit Shedinja, so we're not going to be able to cheese many of these battles easily, but we still do have 21 levels at our disposal, so I'm actually optimistic that this challenge, despite the fact I didn't EV train properly, nor did I reset for a really good Shedinja, although I am Jolly Nature, which is pretty good. But regardless, I would consider it a huge win since I wasn't planning to actually get this far. Alright, so the first Elite Four member I challenged was Chantal. Chantal is a Ghost-type Elite Four member, which kind of cuts both ways. The biggest problem though I see with her is her Coffagrigus takes away Wonder Guard, so now any move will knock me out. But wait, it gets even better. Her second Pokemon is a Chandelure with Flame Body. And Flame Body, if it hits Shedinja, because I have 1 HP, that's it. Getting berries in Black and White is annoying, and there is a Rust Berry which cures burn in the Desert Resort, but rather than having to backtrack, I do have the Lum Berry that heals any status problem, and burn is a status problem, so good enough. Now, with the Lum Berry, is Chantal just automatic? The answer is no, and it's because of this Jellicent. Now, it doesn't happen here, but it has Cursed Body, and if that got rid of Shadow Claw, pretty sure I wouldn't be able to one-shot Golurk, and it would be able to one-shot me, so that's something to watch out for, but Chantal seems like a pretty easy Elite Four member. Another Elite Four member I think is pretty easy, in fact, I think this one's just free, is Caitlyn, the Psychic-type Elite Four member. We have a super effective move against each of Caitlyn's 4 Pokemon, and most of them don't actually have moves that can hit me. So against, I should have gone for X-Scissor, but Shadow Claw seems to have done the trick there. And then against Musharna, I can go for Shadow Claw. And against, okay, well, good to know Shadow Claw actually one-shots everything. I do have Spell Tag, but you can see how quickly I gain experience. I'm all the way at level 83 already. But yeah, it seems that we have one free, one mostly free, but now we have to get to the Dark-type Elite Four member, Grimsley. Now, Ghost does not have a great matchup against Dark, but Bug does. So I'm going to equip the Silver Powder and head up this long, winding escalator. And the big thing I'm hoping about here is the order. Unlike Red and Blue, Elite Four members can send out Pokemon in any order they want. I mean, that makes it sound like it's arbitrary. It's based on a bunch of in-game factors I don't know. But the big problem here is, first off, do we one-shot a Scrafty? I don't know. That was a crit. But no, so that's what we don't want to see is Crocodile, because it has Intimidate, and then after Crocodile, I'm not too worried about Liepard, but then the final Pokemon is Bisharp, and I do have Dig, but Dig is not same type, so we have to one-shot this? We don't. Leveling up would obviously cure this issue, but I wonder if there is a better way without leveling up. A lot of this, though, hinges on whether or not X-Scissor one-shots Scrafty without a critical hit, and it doesn't. So that really puts a damper on what I was planning to do, which is equip the Soft Sand. There's one more Elite Four member I have to beat, and that's Marshall. In theory, fighting has a really bad matchup against Bug or Ghost. In practice, his Pokemon are unbelievably bulky and have moves that hit Shedinja. I mean, that throw, I barely did over half. Well, not barely, but like, that's not nearly enough. So at this point, I think I have 2 Elite Four members solved, and then one that I have some ideas or a little bit of leveling would work, but Marshall may be a lot trickier than I envisioned. And the problems don't end at Sock, but the problems don't end at Throw. I can equip a Scope Lens and have a 1 in 4 chance of critting, but Sock is a sturdy Pokemon. So once again, we're relying on Confuse Ray. Oh, it hits itself in Confusion. Actually, we may have this? I'm going to use Shadow Claw. Okay. Now we have, oh yeah, Conkeldurr. So this Pokemon is also super bulky, and although Stone Edge has a 20% chance to miss, it doesn't there. And yeah. Alright, well, time to level up, and thankfully, there's a really easy way to level up. Caitlyn. But we can equip the Lucky Egg, and then just beat Caitlyn over and over again, and we practically gain a level every time we beat her. I'm actually not a huge fan of being able to pick which Elite Four member you battle because it tends to make things a little easier, but hey, I'm not going to complain in a Shedinja run. As a consequence of leveling up, Grimsley, who I'll admit I have defeated before, has become consistent. X-Scissor now always one-shots Scrafty, and this is without the Silver Powder equipped, meaning we can equip the Soft Sand, and that means Bisharp is consistently a one-shot. So if you were wondering why I went from Caitlyn to Grimsley, Grimsley is actually more consistent than Chantal, where I could theoretically get burned by the Chandelure and potentially get curse-bodied by the Jellicent. And sure enough, wouldn't you know, while I'm able to take out the Cofagrigus and gain some more experience points, against the Chandelure I do get burned. This really isn't a big deal, because I am just trying to gain experience points, but this explains why I battled Grimsley before Chantal. Now, up to this point, I wasn't saving after I beat each Elite Four member, which sometimes I don't do, but in challenges like this, I tend to allow it. But now I will, because Marshall is just going to be kind of RNG, especially because we're relying on a 1 in 4 critical hit, which if we don't get, there's only a minuscule chance that throw both picks Stone Edge and it misses. The alternative would just be leveling up to level 100, which might make the final battle too easy, but I'm close. And because I'm so close, I realized I could alter my strategy. Rather than using the scope lens, I'm actually strong enough that with the spell tag, I can, although it's a bit of a range, one-shot throw, which is pretty good. Sock, I still have to rely on a 50-50 Confuse Ray. There's no way around it because it's sturdy, but once we get that 50-50 chance, I'm pretty sure at this point, it's GG. I do believe Throw is bulkier than Conkeldurr, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Mian Xiao is certainly not fast enough at this point or bulky enough, and we have defeated the Elite Four in black and white. But it's not over. Normally at this point, you would battle the champion, but unique to black and white, rather than battling Alder, who's actually kind of a lame champion to begin with, you instead have to beat N and Ghetsis. Well, the first battle's with N, and he leads with Zekrom. I'm gonna go for Dig, and I hope that one-shots, and he withdraws to Caracosta. This is a problem because Caracosta also has Sturdy and Stone Edge. Now, a really annoying thing here is that you don't just battle N right away. You actually have to do this entire cutscene with Zekrom and Reshiram. It's very tedious. Even with speed up, it takes about 2 minutes between attempts, which is terrible. So hopefully this time Zekrom doesn't switch. Now, Zekrom actually doesn't have any moves to hit me with, so I go for Shadow Claw in case it switches. But, oh yeah, its signature ability, Terravolt, that ignores Wonder Guard, so that's something to keep in mind. Alright, Battle 3 versus N, so I guess I have to go for Dig and hope Zekrom doesn't swap into Caracosta. Good news, it doesn't. I go for Dig, it goes for Fusion Bolt, and then it swaps into Caracosta, which is actually perfect, because Caracosta now has been swapped in so it can't attack. Floor Restore is fine because 2 Shadow Claws should be enough to knock it out, and yes it is, so that's Caracosta down. Now Archeops, do we outspeed? We do. And thankfully it's frail enough for Shadow Claw to knock it out. Kling Klang, I don't actually know if it can hit us or not. Oh, it can with Flamethrower, but Dig is enough to knock... Oh, that's a Zoroark! Didn't know that. Vanillix, I'm gonna go for X-Scissor. Not sure if it can hit us, but now it's fainted. Here comes Zekrom, and I don't know if Dig actually one-shots. It goes for Light Screen. I go for Dig. Ah, it doesn't. What? I guess the AI doesn't realize how Terravolt works. It just attacks randomly. That's hilarious. So, some bad AI. Now all we need... Yeah, I don't think Kling Klang can actually hit us. There we go. We have defeated N, and the great news here is, even though we can't save between the N and Ghetsis battles, if we lose, we can just come right back here, and N stays defeated. You may wonder why I have a full team. This is because without the full team, I'm already forced to catch Reshiram, but Reshiram would actually be added to my party in the lead spot to get a Zekrom versus Reshiram battle with N, and since I want Shedinja, I have a full team. But if I lose to Ghetsis, good news, I can deposit them all and come back. Of course, Ghetsis leads with the worst Pokemon for Shedinja, Cofagrigus. This means there's no cheesing this battle. Once we make contact with Cofagrigus, and by the way, Shadow Ball would not one-shot it, everything will one-shot. So I need to knock out everything. And outspeed. Hydreigon, outspeed, not surprised I one-shot. That is 2 down. Next, we have Bisharp. I have Dig. I'm going to use it. I don't know if we one-shot. Do we? Yes, we do. That is 3. Electros is next. I'm going to go for X-Scissor. Hopefully we one-shot it. We do. That is 4. Seismitoad is next. Please X-Scissor. Please X-Scissor. Okay, one last Pokemon to go. The Buffalo. Bouffalant. Is this the last X-Scissor? No. And while Bouffalant can't hit a Wonder Guard Shedinja, it can hit a not Wonder Guard Shedinja. So we lose. But good news, I had the spell tag equipped and I never used a ghost move. So GG. I mean, I'm saying that, but let's not count our chickens before they hatch. We do have to one-shot the Cofagrigus, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's going to happen. Hydreigon, we still one-shot. Bisharp, we still one-shot. Electros, we're obviously going to one-shot now that we have the Silver Powder equipped. And now, is this 20% boost enough? Yes, it is. Shedinja at level 72 has defeated Pokemon Black and Pokemon White. This was not the result I wanted or expected. This was supposed to be a video that illustrated some niche interactions Game Freak couldn't have foreseen, and I guess it still was that. But while it was supposed to end in a defeat, to illustrate to you guys that I am willing to show runs that I don't win in, I'm a Blissey and Super Sphere had other ideas, and so we once again have to see me beat Pokemon. Thank you guys for watching this run. It was truly an experience, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.